I'm Gia Rogers.
And we made a video where we play the role of
Two detectives, and we further into more detail and depth about the assassination of Abraham Lincoln done by John Wilkes Booth.
All right. Thank you for watching our video,
Yeah.
and hope you enjoy. Detective.
Come check this file cabinet out. I found something rather interesting.
All right.
This information is dated back to 1865. I didn't know we had records that old.
It doesn't matter. It's been 150 years anyway.
It's a very important part of American history that many Americans tend to overlook. Did you know that he was the first president in American history to be assassinated?
No, I had no idea.
All right, detective. Well, I think it's time to clock out. I might stay behind and catch up on a few cases.
Okay. I'm leaving then.
Something doesn't make sense. Detective, where are you going? I'm going to bed.
Abraham Lincoln was born February 12th, 1809 in Hodgenville, Kentucky. His childhood was rather rough. His mother died when he was 9, and his family constantly moved and eventually landed in Illinois. He spent many days splitting logs for fences and clearing his father's farm. He eventually volunteered to join the Army for the Black Hawk War, a war fighting the Native Americans for the purpose of land distribution. Abe was elected to the Illinois House of Representatives 4 times and elected to the U.S. Congress once as well as the U.S. Senate. He was later elected in 1860 for the presidential position.
John Booth was born on May 10, 1838 in Bel Air, Maryland. He was the second youngest child out of 10, and his father, Junius, was a well-known actor, and they all lived on a farm worked by slaves. At age 17, John followed his father's footsteps and began his acting career. In the 1850s, John joined the Know Nothing Party, which aimed to limit immigration to the United States. In 1859, he showed his support for slavery by joining a Virginia military that aided in the capture and execution of John Brown, following his raid on Harper's Ferry. During the Civil War, Booth also served as a secret agent for the Confederacy.
You will not believe the dream that I had last night.
A little weird, isn't it? Both had these strange dreams on the same night. Well, after I woke up, I couldn't help myself. but to find more information about what exactly happened on the night of his assassination.
Six Semper Tyrannis? What does that mean? Well, whatever it means, let's just see how it impacted America.
Good idea. Well, let's start with what actually happened after the night of the murder.
After shooting Abraham Lincoln in the back of the head, he stabbed the Secretary of State 3 times in the back of the throat and jumped off of the booth that the President and the Secretary of State were sitting in. He had fallen onto the stage and broke his leg during the fall. He then ran to the outside to his horse and began his run to Virginia. Well, if you look here, it says that the group of people wanted to murder Abraham because they solely blamed him for the Confederacy's surrender at Appomattox during the Civil War.
Well, it makes sense. But how do you think this affected America?
Well, one of the reasons that people think is because Andrew Johnson, a former slave owner and uneducated Southerner, became president after Abraham's assassination.
Maybe that's why.
Why what?
Think about it. He knew that if he killed Lincoln, there'd be a new president, one such as Andrew Johnson. He was a Southerner, just like John.
Okay.
After John jumped off of the booth and onto the stage with a broken leg, he hurried to his horse waiting for him outside the theater. John did manage to run far, but his broken leg caused some issues. John Booth and his compliance, David Harold, made their way across the Anacostia River and headed to southern Maryland. They later stopped at Dr. Samuel Mudd's home, where he treated John's leg. Due to Mudd's treatment, it earned him a life sentence in prison. John did manage to find refuge at the home of Thomas A. Jones, a Confederate agent, before getting a boat to row across the Potomac in Virginia. As time progressed, the mission to find John worsened, as there was a $20,000 fine on his head. Later, a man named Garrett, a farmer, did allow the men to sleep in the barn, but many hints were given to the Union soldiers to hunt him down. Union soldiers did manage to find them in the barn an estimated 12 days after the assassination. Harold, his compliant, came out of the barn to surrender to the soldiers, but John did not. The entire barn was set on fire to flush Booth out, but he was shot while still inside. He did stay alive for a couple of hours and was said to be muttering, "Tell my mother I died for my country." So as we all know, Abraham Lincoln was born February 12th in Kentucky, and his childhood was really rough. Yeah, his mother died when he was 9, which is, that's kind of hard to take as a child, and his family constantly moved. And during his teenage years, he did work a lot with splitting logs, fences, basic things like that. And he spent a lot of time also just simply clearing his father's farm. Yes, his father did have a farm. I think he did have more of a southern background as well, but he was still, anti-slavery, which is pretty
he
thing.
was working the farm, and there were no slaves on it, and they worked the farm themselves, so no need for slaves, and just grew up with the American no need for slave mindset.
Right, and
this definitely played into his political career, because with slavery around and him being anti-slavery, he really wanted to make a change with the expansion. He was definitely anti-expansion, definitely anti-slavery, but had to keep that under wraps until he could be elected, and he worked for state government a lot, went to president.
Yeah, he was elected 4 times to the House of Reps, and I'm surprised he didn't play as president earlier. For John, a very, very different childhood. He was born in Maryland, specifically Bel Air, Maryland, May 10th. And he had a large family. I'm talking 10 people. And his background did consist of a farm, except
Slaves.
a lot of slaves. Yes,
Slaves, worked by slaves, taught slavery was okay.
Yes.
Civil War comes around. This man, emotional ties to slavery. Automatically, I'm going to help.
He also did have an acting career, like his father, Junius. And he did join the Know Nothing Party, which we did talk about in class, which mainly aimed to limit immigration. He also showed his support for slavery by joining the Virginia military, which aided in the capture and execution of John Brown, which we also did talk about in class. Overall, the assassination of Abraham Lincoln had a huge impact on America. Civilians, many civilians, very upset.
Though the war was over, there was slavery no longer in the U.S., it still had a large impact.
Right.
Because like it was the first ever president being assassinated. That was a big thing.
Yeah, right.
Because people think, oh, the president is untouchable.
Right.
Assassinated right there.
And like I was saying earlier, many civilians had a huge downfall by this assassination. They were looking up to him, right? And John, when he came in with his, pro-slavery mindset and knew that Andrew Johnson would come into presidency if Abraham was to be assassinated.
With Andrew Johnson being a Southerner, pro-slavery, just uneducated, but still a Southerner like John.
Yes, for sure.
When John would be more comfortable with a Southerner in the presidential position than Abraham Lincoln.
All right.
So he just took his .44 caliber Derringer pistol the night of the assassination at Ford's Theater.
Yep. The play was I think it was called My American Cousin.
Yep.
Pretty popular play. One thing we did not mention was it was set up by a large group of people.
People nowadays think Booth and his Southern views that made him just think of assassinating.
Which they did, yes, but
it was conspired by more than 8 people.
Yeah, than you would think.
A large group.
Yeah, right. I mean, and yeah, that's basically it.
Yeah. Anything more?
Not that I know of.
Thank you for watching our documentary / acting out with
slash.
Yeah.
Now we are actually going to show you some bloopers. We did, this took a lot of time. Spent several hours on this, so, yeah.
This is probably my favorite part. All right. Dude, I farted out there and it smells like some ass.
Why? We gotta redo it again. A little weird, isn't it? We both had these strange dreams on the same night. Well, after I woke up, I couldn't help but do a little research on... But actually, this is a very important part of history that many Americans actually tend to overlook.
No, alright, just look at me while you're saying it. Sic semper tyrannis. Sic temper tyrannis. Well, it says here that the group of people wanted to murder. It says that the group of people that wanted to murder Abraham solely blamed him for the Confederacy's surrender. Well, it says here that the group of people that wanted to murder Abraham blamed Lincoln for the Confederacy's surrender at Appomattox during the Civil War. Booth shot Lincoln in the back of the head with a .45 caliber. After shooting Abraham Lincoln in the back of the head, he stabbed the Secretary of State in the back of the throat 3 times and jumped off of the balcony in the theater. Breaking his fall was his leg.